Morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar tips and tricks for SOLIDWORKS Cloud Services. Good morning, Nick.
Good morning, everybody.
So I'm here together with my colleague Nicholas Robert from the UK and myself, Francesco. We're both working in the Euro North, helping our resellers and also our customers with technical questions. And today we're going to talk about some tips and tricks which are included related to the cloud services that are included in every license sold from July 1st, but also something that our existing clients can upgrade to. So what is cloud services? Cloud services basically is the services sold with your SOLIDWORKS licenses, and it gives you access to the 3D Experience platform. And within the cloud services, we distinguish a few levels of adoption. The first level is the share markup. What it will allow you to do is it will allow you as a SOLIDWORKS user straight from SOLIDWORKS to share your models to basically anyone in the world. And what they can do is they can view the models in the cloud and give you feedback on it. The second level of adoption, if you want to, for example, store your data in the cloud for backup reasons, or you want some more formal data management, you can do that. And the latest one is the manage and control. And the manage and control is if you want to have some more formal approval processes, you need a change management process, then that is the right level of adoption, but everything can be done with cloud services. To go in detail and give you a little bit of a summary before we can continue with the tips and tricks. Share markup. It will allow a SOLIDWORKS users directly from SOLIDWORKS to share a secure link. Your data will be on your own platform, so it's not on WeTransfer or something. The user can do it in a browser, so he doesn't need to install software beforehand. For example, you don't need to package it with an e-drawing viewer. And I think the big thing, Nick, is creating the markups and do the redlining. And I think that's one of the unique things about this software. And what you can do is share comments and send feedback back to the person that has shared the link with you.
Yeah, exactly. So it gives you a really low entry barrier to essentially doing some external collaboration.
The second level of adoption, and it's also something we're going to do some tips and tricks about this today, is the store and revise. And what it will do is it will let you save your data straight from SOLIDWORKS to the cloud to make sure that it's secured, make sure it's backed, and that you can do different levels of revisioning, and maybe also work concurrent with multiple users if you want to make sure that your changes are not overwritten. Your data is organized. You can add extra custom properties, so extra metadata. See, the good thing about the platform that it's CAD Aware, so a lot of online storages are just storage. But with the platform, you know, your references are maintained in the background, so your links will not break. It will know which things are related, so that's really good if you're collaborating and want to search things. And you can do easy revision management out of the box. And if you want, you have some extra things like tasks, which you can organize your work. You can relate it to your 3D files, so that's also really good about store and revise. Manage command and control. It's not something we're going to talk about today, but it's a possibility to adopt to that level. And it's more a formal way of working with a release process, making sure you get the right approvals from everyone in the company, from the right stakeholders, and maybe make sure that you capture and track issues related to your subjects. So what are we going to do today, Nick? We're going to talk, I'm going to talk about share markup tips. So how do you start? How do you make an account? How does it look from the engineering perspective? And how does it look from the customer perspective? And Nick's going to talk about the store and revise tips and tricks, how to save, what are good things to take in consideration. And we're not going to talk about managing control today in the tips and tricks. So it's going to be fast-paced. It's going to be recorded. So if you miss a tip and trick, you can watch the recording back after the webinar. So let's dive into it. The share markup. So we're going to discuss today from a perspective of Dan Designer. He has SolidWorks, he has a Cloud Services, and we have Charlie. He's a client and he only has a web browser. So how does it look? So if we take Dan's perspective, and he has Cloud Services. So within SolidWorks, you have the share file button. And if you share, there's a possibility that you get this error message. Sharing is not available with external users. So in the help file, you get some explanations on what the sharing entails, how much room you have. But if you really want to activate it, you can go to your platform and you can go to the settings option. And within the content settings option, you have a few tabs. And with the share, with external, you can turn it on. And this is the only action you need to do to be able to enabling the share. So once you've done it,
Very much a one-time setup, this. It only needs to be set once.
So a quick setting, and then you're able to share files with other people that don't have SolidWorks. So how does it look from a perspective of an engineer? You don't even need to leave SolidWorks. You have a few different export examples. 3D XML is a light version of a SolidWorks model. It's at the moment the only way that you can share assemblies. So if you want feedback, this is the best way to do it. You're also able to share PDFs, step files, STLs, and I think also drawings, huh? Nick?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in a part file, you also have the ability to share a part file and also have the user download it. So if we're going to go to the share markup, and for example, you already have shared it, you get the ability to update the existing file, or you can say, hey, I want to upload a new file. So those are the two options you have when sharing the file. So it will upload it. You get this menu. Automatically, the file is shared for 30 days. So after the 30 days, this will expire. You have the option to enable guest comments, and that will allow the user to put in comments. You can also turn this one off. And you're able to restrict the access. And if you restrict the access, you can add an email. You can add a message if you want. Please review this model. And this way, once you share it, you can share that with someone, or you can copy the link. So those are both options you could do. So this is the only thing you have to do from a SolidWorks perspective. Click on share, wait for the upload, select the options you want to use. You want to enable guest comments, and if you want to restrict access to a certain user, or you want him to get an automatic email, you can fill in the email address. So if we're looking for the perspective of Charlie, what does Charlie need? Charlie only needs to make a 3ds passport once. He doesn't need any licenses, but he needs a 3D Experience ID. So if you create that, you fill in the form once. And once you've done this, you can use this for every thing related to SolidWorks. So your passport is just more than just viewing the view markups. You can use it on the websites to log in, to go access the knowledge base. If you want to, for example, send the information how to do it on YouTube, we have a whole manual from the 3D Experience Works on how to create an account, and you can share that with the other users. So they have some feedback on how to create this. If another user already has, for example, a SOLIDWORKS ID from back in the days, it will be automatically transformed to a 3D Experience account. If you don't know your password, use forget password, and then you will get access to that. So if you have a SOLIDWORKS ID from the future, from the past, it will have been converted to a 3D Experience passport. So by entering the email of Charlie, he will have received an email. And within that email, he can click the link. And when he clicks the link, the model will be loaded. So what can you do when the model is loaded? So the first tips and tricks is how do the controls work? So the scroll button zooms in and out. It zooms like just like SOLIDWORKS. Left mouse button you can rotate, and with the scroll knob selected you can do the pan. So it's a little bit different than SOLIDWORKS. And if you have the right mouse button selected, you can zoom in and out without using the scroll button. So those are the basic controls on how to navigate the viewer. So if you have watched the model and you want to give some feedback, we have some tools to help you convey your feedback back to the sender. So on the bottom, we have the annotation tool, and we can sketch with your mouse. So if you go escape and you click it, it will also make the shape a little bit nicer. So if you go out of your sketch shape, you select it, the shape will always look a little bit nicer. You also have the ability to add the text. And if you type the text, it's really important, and Nick and myself have learned that many times over to do it correctly. Before you go away, just click outside of the text box. Otherwise, the text will disappear. So if you don't do it, you have to retype. So, and once you're done, you can add a comment, and your view will be captured and will be sent to the other user. Anything to add on this, Nick?
Yeah, I guess we also recommend if you're trying to point to a piece of geometry, is kind of start your drawing or your annotation from the piece of geometry and draw away from it. That way, if you rotate the model, it kind of ensures your annotation stays with pointing to the correct feature.
Thank you. So another tip and trick is what you can do is if you look here with the right click, you can go to visual quality, and you have two options. You can go recommended settings, or you can go to advanced settings, and then you can, for example, turn on shadows, and you can make the picture look more nice, maybe to take a screenshot. And if you turn on all the settings, the rotating will be a little bit difficult sometimes on the certain computers, but you can make really nice pictures out of it. So it looks really nice. So that could be something you want to do if you want to snap a picture after you receive the file.
Yeah, so we tend to set the sort of static mode a high quality setting, and the dynamic mode a bit lower, because you're not too fussed about the quality of the image as you're rotating the components.
And if you go to advanced, you have some more options to choose from blending, shadows, reflections, and refractions. So if we switch back to Dan, what we will see is that Dan has received a few notifications within SOLIDWORKS. And what he can see is that Charlie has made some comments on the model, and we can view them in SOLIDWORKS. The good tip would be to maybe increase your session, your screen on the right side, so you can click the comment. It will load the 3D model, including the comments. And if you want some more surface area, you can increase the screen temporarily to make it bigger to watch the comments better. and you can see the comments that we made before. You can turn around a little bit, and that's what Nick says. If you make sure that you make it on the geometry, it will stick to that place. You can also view other comments that have been made, and the model will turn around and switch to that view. So this is the way you can receive feedback, and it will ensure you that you can get your feedback sooner. Everything is related to the model, and you don't have to rely on emails for this. So Nick, can you talk about some tips and tricks for Storm Revise?
Yeah, sure. So we'll just switch screens to myself. Okay, so moving on to Store and Revise. So the tips and tricks I'm going to cover here aren't necessarily just for the Store and Revise adoption level. They kind of cover all levels. But let's dive straight in. So the first set of tips and tricks we're going to look at is what we call the save tips. So there's a number. Working with 3D Experience, you have a number of different ways to save your model. So whether you're saving your SolidWorks models, whether you're saving sort of locally or saving to 3D Experience in the cloud. So what we recommend is adding the quick access commands for the different save options. So you can simply, we'll see a video on how we do that shortly. We also recommend, if you're used to using keyboard shortcuts, to check what shortcuts are available for the saves and maybe modify them to suit your needs. So you can see the different examples of the different types of saves there and the different save options. And people who may not have a very consistent sort of internet or a very high quality internet may choose to not necessarily save to the cloud every time, which is completely fine. As long as you're sort of following the best practice and locking your data, what you've opened from 3D Experience, when you're making them modifications, just to ensure that no other users can modify that data when you've got it checked out. So you can kind of maybe work the day doing local saves and then do a sort of cloud save at the end of the day. So the sort of value is it just improves the sort of save experience. So a little bit of customization of that SolidWorks interface just adds that little extra bit of user efficiency to your daily usage of SolidWorks. So one thing to just note, currently there is a slight difference in icons between the 3D Experience SolidWorks and the SolidWorks desktop with the collaborative designer. So you can see here I've highlighted the slight differences in icons, and don't worry, we are working to align these images in future releases. And another little quick tip is if you're adding shortcut commands to your taskbars, we recommend sort of separating the save buttons, because they're quite small and quite similar images. So ensuring that you've kind of spread them out so you don't accidentally do the wrong sort of save unintended.
Yeah, so if you're so local to cloud, I think if you save 5 times locally and 1 time to the cloud.
Exactly. So you can see here in the user interface SolidWorks, we can right click in the top toolbar and click on customize. And from the command section, we can search for the sort of general toolbars or search for save specifically, and we can drag and drop the icons to the taskbar. Now you noticed I've dragged and dropped this 3D Experience save next to the local save there, which is kind of going against one of our tips. However, it's quite easy to add additional icons. And we can also access the keyboard shortcuts and modify them as required, or just use the defaults. So it's really quite a simple trick, but it just adds that little bit of user efficiency in your daily tasks. So now moving on to locking and unlocking of data. So there's a number of sort of different ways we can lock and unlock data. But it's always recommended if you're opening data and you plan to make a modification on it, is that you do lock that data to ensure that other users are aware that you're working on that data and won't accidentally overwrite that data while you're working with it locally. So you can see here in the SolidWorks interface here, we can access the flyout and just quickly lock data by clicking on the lock icon here. And we'll see that in the following video. So unfortunately, it seems some of my auto start to the videos aren't working, but it's all right, we'll resolve that. So you can see once we've locked that data in the top bar there, it gives you an indication that that particular battery assembly is locked by myself. If it was locked by another user, it would indicate which user's got that locked. So you can collaborate with them if you need to work on it, and you can ask them to unlock it. Now you notice I've unlocked it here. So the other way you can lock data is if you kind of forgot to lock it, is when you do the save operation, it will sort of force you to lock the data before you persist them changes back to the cloud. So you can see from the save dialog here, we can filter down to what data has been modified. It'll show you that the data needs to be locked, and we now have ability to lock the data right next to the save button. And we also have the ability to sort of unlock that data after it's been saved, after you've committed them changes to the cloud. So now the data's been locked and we've chose to unlock it. So upon completed save, it will then essentially release that release that data after checking. So now moving on to search tips and tricks. So obviously now, because we're saving our data to the cloud, essentially saving our data into a database, it's a single repository of information. So how best can we search that repository of information for the data we need? So the first set of search tips and tricks we're going to cover is an option called My Content, 6W tags, and quick filtering. And we're going to show that through some examples from the sort of open dialogues within SolidWorks. So you'll notice now in the newer versions of SolidWorks, we've now got an improved open dialog, which lets us search 3D experience for our data. We can use the My Content filter to filter all of that data. So you'll notice there's 12,500 odd results there. Filter that data to what we call My Content. So that's the data that I've created. And that will further reduce down that data step, but there's still a large amount of data there. So we can use what we call 6W tags to further filter that data. So automatically when you save data to 3D experience, it will index the attributes of that data. So you can see we can filter on a project attribute. And in this case, this enables us to further refine our search. And you can see at the top there, it's selected tags. It essentially allows us to build a quite complex search, quickly reducing that. And on top of that, we can essentially then use the quick filter options to filter down to parts assemblies, drawings, and sort of root assemblies. So we've gone essentially down from 12,500 odd results down to 4 results very efficiently there. And you can see we can add and remove tags to update that search. We'll quickly switch our quick filters to get to the intended object that we want to open. Okay. Okay, so that provides sort of an additional layer to enabling search. So it's not like the old way where you're trying to remember what folder you saved it in on on a sort of Windows Explorer, we've got that single repository and a search index indexing all of the information and attributes of that data. So it enables us to do really powerful searching. So now we're going to move on to a search from the 3D Experience webtop interface, and we're going to use what we call pinned searches. So if you're using the 3D dashboard, the pinned searches is a nice way to create a sort of persisted search within that dashboard. So how do we go about creating a pinned search? So you can see at the top we've got the search bar, so we can do our sort of similar search to what we did before, where we create a my content search, and then we may refine the 6W tags to further filter that data down. So in this case, I'm just toggling off showing a couple of the 6W tags just to make it a bit easier to navigate through the tags here. So again, I'm going to take advantage of that project attribute on the data and filter down to the Baker Clutch project. And then I'm going to use the type tag, which enables me to select parts and assemblies. So you can see now I've gone essentially down to 21 results. Now what I can do is, because I've built quite a complex search up there, and I may want to reuse that search over and over again, I can then use this option here to pin this search to the dashboard. So what that will do is it'll create me a little application within my dashboard tab. And essentially that's a live search. If I create new content which meets that search criteria, it will be automatically populated within that search. But I'm going to duplicate this pin search and also just quickly modify the criteria on that duplicated search application I've created. So instead of searching parts and products, in this case, I'm going to modify the 6W tags and switch them over to drawings. So now I've got a really nice interface for the Baker Clutch projects, which shows me all my SolidWorks parts and drawings, making it very easily accessible for me to open that data up in SolidWorks if I want to work upon it.
And it's a live one, so it will update when you add more files to it.
Exactly, yeah. Okay, and then I can add additional applications to my dashboard. So just in this case, using the 3D Play widget, which enables you to sort of preview lightweight representations of 3D Experience data within a web browser. So I can easily preview, drag and drop the data on there and preview my SolidWorks data. Okay, so that covered pin searches. So that's a nice way to build a sort of user interface for your users to access their data and reveal their data. So just a bit of a power tip here. So you noticed at the beginning of them videos, I used a my content option, but you can also do string searches. And if you see, you can use this what we call an advanced search. So if we use the SWPRD : or SWDRW : that will essentially do a search for any SolidWorks parts and assemblies or any SolidWorks drawings. So that'll enable you to build them pin searches as well. Now we're going to move on to what we call favorite searches. So obviously we built this quite complex search combination. We can take advantage of reusing that by saving them as favorite searches. So how do we go about doing that? You can see before we created these widgets, we can then also save them as a favorite search. And what does that mean? Well, that enables us essentially to reuse them searches across 3D Experience. So it makes it a little bit quicker and easier to perform them same searches again. So I've saved a clutch parts and drawings favorite search and sorry, parts and assemblies favorite search, and I saved a clutch drawings favorite search. So now we're going to jump back into SolidWorks and we're going to reuse them favorite searches. So you can see we've gone back to our open dialog box and we can use the option here, favorite searches. What that will do is that will show your favorite searches, because them searches are essentially saved in 3D Experience in the cloud. So you can see the ones I've just created, and we can reuse that, and it'll bring up the results so we can directly access that data very quickly within SolidWorks. And we can open our data. So there's multiple layers and different levels of ways to search, and we can obviously take advantage of the different efficiencies, the different ways of working help. Okay, so just a power tip for this. So by default, when you create a favorite search, that the visibility of that favorite search is only to the user who created that. But maybe them favorite searches may be useful for your other team members. You may have other team members, for example, working on that clutch project. So what you can actually do is you can change the maturity state of that search object and promote it to shared. And what that means is the other users of your platform can then leverage and take advantage of that favorite search. So that will become visible to them when they click on their favorite searches. So it's a nice way to share, if you build up some quite complex search combinations to share them across your organization. So here's another little tip and trick. Now it's not exactly mind blowing, but it is really useful, particularly when Francesco was showing the share and markup view in SolidWorks, and you had to sort of drag the pane. What you can do is you can sort of, using the icon in the top right of that My Session view there, you can essentially drag the size of the My Session box and then collapse it back. So then you can essentially expand and collapse very easily, but still ensuring that you're not taking up too much real estate of that SolidWorks interface. So now moving on to some more My Session tips and tricks. So setting the default bookmark. So down in the bottom of My Session in the tools section here, you'll see a cog icon, and this is where you can access the settings for the My Session add-in, and it'll bring up this dialog box. So what we can do is, when you're saving data to 3D Experience, you can save it to a bookmark structure. Now, in the save dialog, you can manually select the bookmarks, but that can become somewhat quite tedious. So say, for example, you're working on a project and you're planning to work on that for a good couple of weeks. What we can do is you can pre-create a bookmark and then set it as the default landing place for your data. So that means when you go to save it, it's automatically populated with that bookmark. So it's just a nice way of saving a bit of time for sort of non-value added tasks.
Yeah, what you also can do is maybe create a bookmark where all your files land, and then you move it from the location where it's landed to the bookmark you desire.
Yeah, so like I could create one like Nick's bookmark. So I know whenever I save data, it's always going to land in that place, and then I can file it away later, shall we say? Yeah, yeah, that's a good tip, Francesca. Another tip, which is what we call replace current revision automatically when creating a new revision. So as you move up the adoption levels and maybe start taking advantage of the revision capability within 3D Experience, you may want, when you're creating a new revision, for it to automatically update to the latest revision in the context of the assembly you're working in. Now, typically this is sort of a manual task. It's the user's choice to replace the intended revision in the assembly. But we have added this option here now, so it will automatically sort of perform this replace by revision option. So it's just a bit of time saving. Let's see how that works. So I'm working in an assembly here, and I'm going to access my session options. So you only need to set this once. But you can see we're going to toggle on the replace current vision automatically when creating a new revision. So we've got that option set. So as I'm working in my model, I'm going to create a new revision of this pedal. So it's quite simple. You just right click on the part and say create new revision. And then it'll ask you for a revision comment. So in this case, we're going to make a narrower pedal. And because we've got this option on, as it's created revision B of that part and essentially locked it, it will automatically replace that revision B into the assembly as well. So it just saves us a bit of time. Now, you don't have to have that option on. It is a manual choice whether you want to place that revision, but it can become quite time consuming if you always intend to replace it to the latest revision. So looking at some of the sort of newer options available. So we have what we call activate asynchronous save. So this was released a couple of releases ago, was it, Francesco? It's been available now and it's on by default. So what happens now if you're saving to 3D experience and you've got more than sort of 25 items in the save scope, it will do what we call a asynchronous batch save. So it'll do the saves, it'll batch the saves up and do them in the background without locking your SolidWorks session. So we'd recommend obviously keeping this turned on because essentially it allows you to carry on working within SolidWorks while it's saving that large amount of data.
Yeah, so basically what it does, it saves it locally on your computer. Then it will release SolidWorks to start working again, and in the background it will upload it to the platform for you in the batch process.
Yeah. So some of the some of the newer options available in 24x GA. So the first one we're going to look at is what we call save related drawings. So this option is not on by default, but we recommend trying it. And what it will do is if you're making sort of modifications to an assembly or the first sort of level of assembly, it will automatically rebuild and save your drawings for you when you do that, when you save them assemblies, the changes to the assemblies back to the platform. So it saves you essentially having to open up each drawing, rebuild and save it. It'll do that automatically as long as them drawings are cached with the assembly on your machine. Another one which we also recommend, which is actually on by default now, is enable save optimization. So what this does is it will improve the sort of save behaviors that were previously available in R23X by essentially only saving data, basically only saving the changes for data what's been modified. So in the past, certain the save scope was a lot larger. Even files which weren't modified were still part of that save scope and saved back to the 3D experience. So let me show you a little example on the right here. So with the we've made a modification to the assembly in one part in the assembly here. With it turned on, you can see 24x GA, it's only saving, the save scope is only saving the data that's actually been modified. Whereas previously in R23X, or with this option turned off, you can see it's got additional content, although hasn't been modified, it still needs to save some sort of attributes back. So the save scope wasn't necessarily as optimized as it should have been in the past, and we recommend trying this option. And the hope is that obviously this will become sort of, it will become less of an option in the future and more just the default new way to save or improved way to save. Okay, so that's it for tips and tricks from me. So I'll hand over to Francesco for a quick summary.
Yeah, so we done some share markup tips and tricks. This should be you know, fairly easily to adopt. I think it should take you, you know, not more than once you activate your platform, it should not make you more than 10 minutes to get up and running. Make sure you turn on the option and start sharing. And with the store and revise, yeah, Nick gave you a lot of tips and tricks. I think you have to review some of them. I personally like the pin searches. That's one of my favorites for that. just a tip and trick we didn't show. If you're familiar with PDM in the past, you can also share or drag in files from your platform. So you don't always have to use My Session. You can also have your platform on your second screen as your screen to find your files.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to the next one, the Q&A. We answered already some questions during the presentation. One of the biggest ones, of course, I think a lot of people have, can we have a link to the presentation to share with your colleagues? The link, if you're registered, will be sent to you, but you can forward it to your colleagues and they can also watch the webinar. So it's not a personal link, so that is good to do. I think one of the questions, I think it's not really clear for me. You have SOLIDWORKS in the traditional colors. Can you set the dashboard to the traditional colors? I don't think so. It's possible, Nick, because 3D Experience is the blue and the white.
Yeah,
Maybe in
so
the future,
yeah,
but
it's the brand. Yeah, we unfortunately have brand colors in Dassault, and yeah, it's got separate brand colors to SolidWorks. But yeah, might be an enhancement for the future.
so a really good question from Alex. If you have PDM, can you adopt some of the tips and tricks? Alex, yes. What you can do is you can adopt the share markup. You cannot adopt the store and revise, but you can share the files through a share markup, even if you have PDM, because what it does, it will create a copy on a separate drive and will give you an interface to get the feedback. So it is compatible for the share markup. So I think that's a good addition for people outside your organization. You don't want to give them access to your PDM, then this is a really good way to get your feedback without sending a mail and having, you know, interactive on the 3D model, your feedback. So it's compatible in that way. So I think that's a really good addition.
Yeah, and I don't think any of the sort of search tips and tricks will work because your data will be in PDM and not in 3D Experience. So